Alright, welcome back guys, or welcome to this your first time here. I'm Vision here with Blind Entertainment, bringing you guys another video. Today we're doing a comic book review for one of my favorite comics, Kill or Be Killed, issue number 17. Now if that's something you're interested in, something you want to know my thoughts on, hit the subscribe button down below and hit the bell icon, that way you don't miss any future videos on Kill or Be Killed moving forward. Now let's begin. So we pick up this issue with Dylan still in a mental health facility, and he's going about not taking his meds anymore and just acting drugged. He's kind of sick and tired of being in the facility, and he's ready to get out. But at the same time, he's trying to plan a way to kill Perry, the orderly that's groping girls, and get away with the killing. But at the same time, he's having second thoughts and doubting it because he's not sure. Because he only saw him do it once, and he hasn't seen Perry grope or touch anybody since then. So he's having second thoughts, and it follows him around the facility, and he even says how, in this facility you're easily able to follow people around and kind of do that stuff because everybody's drugged and they assume you just don't know what you're doing. And I really like how to have that. But he also mentions how Perry just seems like everybody likes Perry. He's such a great guy, typical of these kind of people. And I like how they got that. And then he's just been following him around in the facility and just trying to get more information on him to make sure this is a true person that deserves to die. And he decides to go about it one night, and he walks in on him about to do stuff with that one girl. And of course, Perry sees him and kind of gets mad at him and threatens him, and he goes back to his room. And I really like how they had that whole setup there, and him telling us what he did to prepare, make sure he was the real deal and not like a figment of his imagination, like he said, because he wasn't sure if Perry really was a pedophile or anything, because he only saw him do it once before this time. And I really like how they had him second guessing himself and just doing detective work to make sure he's killing the right guy. I really like how they did that because it's something logical and reasonable that Dylan would do before killing this guy, since he doesn't really know too much about him, and since he kind of can do it in this facility because he's able to just get away with walking around and following people like you mentioned. So then we get caught back up with kind of present time, and the orderlies, which include Perry, have decided to take the residents outside to get some fresh air and whatnot. And this is where Dylan has planned to enact his kind of way to kill Perry in a sense. And he talks about how he got to this point, how he went through this process. And he talks about how originally he had planned, because he had scoped out the area due to walking around the facility and figuring it out. He had found a place where he could kill him, because they got cameras all around them. So he found a place where he could kill Perry away from the cameras and not be seen. And he was originally going to do it when the orderlies get drunk or high, because that way he'd be easier to control and be easier to manipulate and kill. I really like that, but then he realized that it might be a little bit tougher. Plus, it's usually all the orderlies are in one place together, or get high or drunk at the same time, so that kind of puts an end to his plan. And then he finds a way to kill him. On their outing this time, he remembers that there is this lake in the back of the facility where it's all frozen with ice on top, and he has planned to lure Perry into the lake and push him in and pretty much have him drowned in the lake. So he walks around to the back and goes missing, and eventually when the orderlies decide to bring him back in, they realize that Dylan's missing, and Perry goes to find him and retrieve him and bring him back, playing into the plan that Dylan had already enacted. So he goes up to follow Dylan into the back and find him. And then at the same time, you got Dylan, who's trying to figure out what's his true purpose for doing this. Now, I like this part, but I also don't. Because in one strength, yes, I like how they got him questioning why he's doing this. Because he thinks he's doing this to prove to the doctor that he's the true vigilante. But in the same strength, I feel like this wasn't really needed, because obviously you could easily look at it as the reason he's doing this is to fulfill the demon so he can live. But unless he's wants to die at this point, there's there's an easy way to explain why he's doing this. So that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way of we don't need these scenes of why he's doing this. We know why he wants to do it. pretty much. It's pretty much to, you know, fulfill the demon's need for him to kill someone and, you know, keep on living. Like, it seemed out of place. I understand what they were going for, but it just seemed a little out of place. But eventually, Dylan's plan kind of fails when the other orderly Liv, Perry, finds him, and they both bring him back inside. So, I did like that, how his first plan failed, because that's a logical thing to happen, and I think that was a good way to push the story in a way where Perry doesn't die that way, because I think there was a couple holes in that plan. Like, what if they had installed cameras back there? Like, Dylan doesn't know if, and they do. Like, he's not a he doesn't know what the bosses do. Like, what if they had installed cameras? They could have done it, and then he would have been caught. But I don't know. I like what they did here with him being caught by the other orderly and being brought back inside. I like how they played that whole storyline out. Then we got Dylan going in and showering and talking to his therapist. Now, I understand why they did this, probably because, the therapist would be worried about him, making sure he didn't want to hurt himself, and I understand that, but I feel like the whole thing with him finding out about the copycat was just a plot device. I feel like they could have done it in a better way, where he either heard two orderlies talking about it or he saw on the news or something. And I just feel like this wasn't really needed. We had just gotten off the high of everything that happened with Perry. I just feel like it took a pit stop and halt, and I just wish they had done it in a different way. But leave your thoughts and opinions. Do you think they should have done it a different way? Do you think how they did it was okay? I think they should have done it a different way. And again, I think it was a bit of a plot device thing. I did like how later on Dylan was explaining how, how he's talked about earlier in the story, how he wasn't sure why he was doing this. I like how it went back to the whole because he noticed the injustices in the world, and it kind of related back to what his doctor was saying a few issues back. That was not enough though for me to like these scenes with the doctor. I feel like again they were just plot device and weren't really needed. But leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Did you like how it played out, or do you think they should have done it in a different way? Then you have Dylan, who's so wrapped up in everything that had happened, and he's just preoccupied, and he ends up following Perry home and out of the facility. Now this doesn't make any sense to me, and probably my biggest con of this issue is if you ever been to like one of these facilities or like a nursing home, they usually have these things where you have to check out, or like you have to go through like some kind of security thing first before you actually leave, and it just feels like Dylan should not have been able to leave the facility that easily. It just felt like just plot device again, like they needed him to leave so that none of that ended up happening. But in reality, I feel like he would have been stopped and they would have had to brought him back in. I think he would never have been able to have this happen unless maybe he went through a side door. But then again, if you've ever been to one of those facilities, most of them are like you have to have your card or whatever, or put in a pin. So again, I think it's very weird that they had that kind of happen. But I like how they had him go and follow Perry home, and then you have Perry who finds him when he gets to his apartment, which again, like, it still doesn't add up. Like, Dylan is able to 100% follow him home and not be seen, unless Perry lived like maybe a block or two away. That makes sense, but it's still questionable to me. Like, this guy or no one else noticed him following Perry the entire way home if he lived a couple blocks away. It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I've been following him home, and like I said, Perry sees him, and he kind of threatens him and says, if you ever open your mouth to anybody, it wouldn't be hard to make you disappear. And I like how they had that, because, like, sadly enough, that's probably true, because, like, if with how these people are in these facilities, no one would believe Dylan. And then with how, like, with the way these places are, these doctors can get away with anything pretty much. These orderlies can, and it'd probably be easy to make something happen to Dylan and make it look like an accident, like he said. So I did like that, but then you had Dylan fight back, and he pushes him down the stairs, and he lands and hurts himself. And I like how they mentioned how, like, it's not like in the movies where when you fall down the stairs, you're not instantaneously dead, or it's not like how it plays out in the movies. And then he goes in, like, curb stomps him. And I like how they had that play out. I did like that. And then I like how he said, it won't trace back to me more because, he has the weed and the stuff in his bag, so it'll probably be blamed on that. And that goes back to the whole when he tried to kill him in the lake. Because, again, if he had done that, again, like I said, there could have been cameras back there. But also, if he pushed him in the lake and they found him, they could have found Dylan's fingerprints on him, or even if he wore gloves, what if a piece of the mittens fell off, and they could easily trace that back, like who was wearing those mittens that day, or whatever. Like it would have been so much easier to trace him back to the lake, and doing it this way was so much better. Then of course he sees the newspaper in his bag of the vigilante, and he sits on his bed and begins reading it, and then he brings up the Mason stuff, which he had brought up again. Now this is another issue I have with the book is, in reality, Dylan wouldn't know about the Mason stuff right now. Like, this is stuff he wouldn't know about, and yet he knows about it and is talking about it. In reality, he wouldn't notice, and it just kind of pulls me out of it, because it's not realistically something that would happen. It just kind of pulls me out of it. I understand why they do it this way, but I just don't like it, because it just doesn't feel authentic and realistic. Because Dylan's locked away. He wouldn't have known that Mason had called until a couple issues back. Like, I understand how they're doing it, and it's like Dylan telling the story a few days or probably maybe years ahead of us, depending on how the story ends in a couple issues. But I wish they had done it in a different way, because it just doesn't make much sense, and realistically wouldn't happen. So yeah, guys, that's my review of Kill or Be Killed issue number 17. Again, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and share. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and hit the bell icon. That way you don't miss any future videos having to do with Kill or Be Killed. This has been Vision Hero Blind Entertainment, and I will see you next time.